This is the main hallway in our house, and my wife wanted to put up some shelves here where my oil paintings are, so I made a mock-up of the design, which is what you're looking at right there. My wife approved it, and with that I could get to building. I decided to make this whole thing out of 1/2-inch MDF, one because it's cheap, and two because I knew I was painting it. I didn't feel like wasting my good walnut. So before I knew it, I had 3 whole sets of material for 3 whole sets of shelves. And then I got to sanding the edges. I learned that on the mock-up that I needed to do that. And then the sandpaper gave me a pretty gnarly paper cut somehow. That's the first time that's happened, but I was okay. And so with that, I could cut them to size. One of the shelves is actually going to be like 1.5 feet, so 2 3-foot shelves and then 1 1.5-foot shelf. And once everything was cut and sanded, I could get to assembly. And for that, I'm just going to use wood glue and pin nails. Actually, on this one here, I tried to use some CA glue to get it kind of initially set before I started firing nails. That worked okay, but I didn't think it was worth the hassle on the future assemblies. And I like a little bit of wiggle room, really, when I'm using the nails. I mean, don't we all? You can see I'm using a Craftsman pin nailer with a DeWalt battery. I had to buy this weird adapter just because I was too cheap to buy the DeWalt nailer. Anyway, I just used pin nails and glue, like I said, and before I knew it, I had 3 whole sets of shelves assembled and ready to go. And actually, on one of these here, the nail fired through the side, and I just used some CA glue and a clamp to close that up, and it worked pretty well. Once the glue had pretty much set, I decided to fill those pinholes with this high-strength wall putty stuff. It just smoothed right on, and while that was drying, it gave me a good chance to figure out actually how to mount these to the wall. So I took my mock-up and a Forstner bit, drilled about halfway through, and then using these 1/2-inch decorative plugs, the idea is that the screw goes all the way through, and then the decorative plug sort of just plugs the hole and hides the screw. I think it'll look okay, but we shall see. And with that figured out, I could sand off that putty, make it nice and smooth, and flush up the ends on the table saw because I was a little sloppy in my glue up. And then I marked the mounting locations, the holes for all of the shelves, got those drilled, and then it was ready for primer. On the mock-up, I discovered that primer is actually very important. Who would have thought? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's obvious to almost everybody, but primer is very important. Gets the surface ready for paint. Anyway, 2 coats of primer and sanding in between, and it was ready for the next step. I think I used 320 grit sandpaper, and the next step is actually spraying the finish. Here is a 3D printed rattle can shaker that fits in the drill. This thing's a lifesaver. Saves your arms. I thought I would brush or roll on the paint, but with all these nooks and crannies, trying to get a smooth finish without marks was going to be a massive pain. So I said, all right, let's get a rattle can and spray it on. And that was a good decision. After a couple coats, it looked nice. And with that, it was pretty much ready to install. I took down my paintings, RIP, got the shelf kind of where it needs to be as just a quick look, and then took them out and drilled all the way through now finally for the screws. And then I took some CA glue to kind of strengthen up the MDF. I don't know if it's necessary, but I don't think it can hurt. And then I got out the laser level and drilled, and using some drywall anchors, attached the first shelf. And then we rinsed and repeated with the level, drywall anchors, and before we knew it, we had all 3 shelves put up. And that's one happy wife. And finally, here it is in its final state, all finished and decked out with various things. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.